When you start a garden, in order to make sure that you are reaping all the benefits of it, you want to make sure that you can prepare these plants to thrive the best that you can. That entails making sure they have enough water, making sure they have good soil, but also some of the plants require trellises. And whether you want to do that in arch form or just have them go straight up, it's the best way to make sure that you can get everything out of that plant and reap all the benefits of it. And that's something that we haven't done well, especially with one particular plant. So right here behind me, you can see inside the greenhouse, Chelsea has started a lot of plants that need to get out of this greenhouse now that the weather is, frost dates are done. No need to worry about them anymore. We need to get everything into our garden, so everything that is inside this greenhouse for the most part, we probably won't get it done today, but we need to start planting it into this garden, which will be super exciting again to see all the green all throughout the garden. And then the hard work comes of managing it all, which hopefully today, by building a few trellises and arches, will help us manage it where we don't have to do as much managing as we did last year, because I don't feel like we did as many trellises as we should have, and some of the trellises just weren't done right that well. So we're gonna start by making a new tomato trellis, which we've seen this, a lot of people use this idea. We tried a different method, which I'll talk about here afterwards, but we're gonna start working because it's already getting pretty hot, and it's still the morning, so it's only gonna get hotter. So we're gonna try to put this together, and we'll explain what we're doing while we're doing it. So the first thing that we gotta do, and Chelsea's starting right now, is we gotta tear up this weed barrier so we can amend the soil a little bit, get it with some new nutrients, because this is where we plan on planting our tomatoes. So before we put a trellis in, we gotta get that done first. So Chelsea brought up a good point that before we can actually make our trellis that we want, it's gonna be better to have the tomatoes in the ground so that we don't gotta work around the trellising. So we're gonna get them into the ground first. How many tomato plants do you think?
Well, I have a tomato for one thing, but I don't have to use them all. I can give them away.
Chelsea wanted to kind of do this setup. I kind of pitched her the idea that we could possibly do it with these. How do you feel like it turned out?
I think it turned out really good. It's a lot cheaper than the cattle panel, and I think it looks just as good.
Now we just gotta cross our fingers that it's gonna work. There's a lot of these things sometimes that you think of ideas, and the ideas might not work. We'll tell you guys what we ended up doing. So these are like, I think they were called like red post. You remember? Electrical.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know.
Next to the T-post.
They're like a little over $2 a piece. So T-posts are a little more expensive. These are still pretty sturdy. There's a little bit of wobble to them, but I think they're gonna hold up just fine because they have an extra stake, just like a T-post does, to go into the ground.
That's my only hesitation right there.
She's afraid that the weight of the tomato plants is gonna body them out, but we'll see what happens. So those were cheap, so if you wanted to do it, we have 10 of them, so that's like $25 for 10 of those posts. This fencing right here is the welded wire fencing, and it's the same kind that we have all throughout our chicken runs and our property. It's strong enough, like stronger than string, which we've used in the past with tomato trellises, which I'll talk to you guys here in a second. It's still a little bit of flexible, but it's still gonna be good enough to hold up the tomato plants, is what I believe. So this is an idea for someone who's trying to do a little cheaper. We got welded wiring for, I think it was what, $90? $100 for 100 feet of it. So, which we are going to use this for more trellising, which we're about to do after this. Gave us where we could do all the tomato plants. I think we have about 20 foot across each way. So this is about 40 feet. If you were gonna do that in cattle panels, it would be pretty expensive. I think you would have needed to at least get 3 of the 16-foot ones here. And that would already have got you to around $70. Plus we have more trellising, like I said, to do. So this is a way to do this a little cheaper. And of course we have a Homesteader's best friend, zip ties. Fairly cheap, and you get a whole bunch of them, and zip ties are something you should have on hand all the time because it just works really easy. It's good for temporary things too, so you could just unclip them really easy, cut them, move it on to the next thing. Zip ties are strong enough to hold together all this, so now we'll see if it works.
Does this work? Or next year we're gonna try again.
We hope not. We've had some unluck with tomatoes. The last year we tried to do something new where we did, what was it called? The twine,
Florida weave?
The Florida weave, which is basically just keep on doing different layers of string, but you want like a little bit stronger, like a twine that goes all the way across, and then as the tomato plants grow, you put another one up above that and kind of try to weave them through, I think. And we kind of started it, I feel like, just a tad later. They were already kind of grown in. So we're hoping that this method's gonna be better. And then the previous year, we kind of tried to do that, but kind of didn't really. It was just kind of...
bamboo sticks.
Huh?
We did bamboo sticks.
We did bamboo sticks, but not really.
Well, yeah. We started.
We tried to a little bit. It was kind of just in the garden bed. It went all over. So the last couple years, we've done tomatoes, and we really haven't got to harvest as much as we would like from them. So this year, we're hoping that this really gives us a ton of tomatoes that we can actually harvest. We've gotten a whole bunch of tomatoes every year. We grow tomatoes just fine. It's the harvesting part that's been a little tricky. So now that the tomatoes are now all done and we have the trellis up for them, which we are just gonna cross our fingers that that works good this year. You can see right here, kind of, let me move this camera a little bit. We have an arch trellis going right here, which we're gonna do for peas this year. But then also we need 2 more of these, which we're gonna use for beans and cucumbers. What me and Chelsea were thinking is to kind of have like one right here, one right there, one right here, where it's almost like a walkway of going underneath trellises, which would be kind of cool. And what I'm gonna do is the extra fencing that we had for using for this tomato trellis, which I have right here, should work out just fine for it. It's actually the same fencing that we used our first year ever trellising from when we used cucumbers right here. And then we switched to this cattle panel, which cattle panel definitely is stronger and more support. It's just a tad more expensive, so it's up to you and how you want to do it. This is something you can do if you want to use cattle panel, but I'm going to show you that it works just well with welded wiring too. You just got to put a little more support, which I'm going to do right here. So now if you can look behind me, we have all 3 of these trellises now all side by side by side. And for these trellises, we did the arch trellis. This is something that you don't have to do, but if you do want to add a little spice and some good looks to your garden, an arch trellis just looks really nice once it all gets filled in and complete. It's also easier to harvest from because it'll just drop and you can just see it easily hanging right there and just pick it right away. Trellising is definitely a way to make sure that you get to harvest as much as you can and nothing gets wasted, nothing's sitting on the ground, nothing falls off, gets broken. This usually helps against bugs as well because it has to go up a little bit more. And I know one thing Chelsea's excited for, and the kids will be, is once this is all filled in and being able just to walk underneath all of it and seeing all the cucumbers, the peas, and the beans. And hopefully it'll help the kids harvest it. But between doing that trellis and this tomato trellis here that we have going on, this should hopefully ease our gardening experience this year. And we need that. It helps. And we want to make sure one of our goals this year was to grow things, number one, that we truly enjoy and that we are going to use. There's no point in having a garden and growing things that you don't like or growing things just because. And we also want to make sure we could harvest the best that we could. And that doesn't mean growing as much as you can sometimes to harvest the most you can. Sometimes it means setting up trellises just like this and like that, growing in the spaces that make sense, and making sure it's just easy for you to come out and actually harvest it. If it's not easy for you to come out and harvest, then that's not gonna make you want to come out and get it. Your food's gonna get wasted, it's gonna get on the ground, it's gonna get eaten by bugs. This should hopefully make us want to come out and harvest more And like I said, the more we harvest, it's a win for us. And that's definitely our goal for gardening this year. So for these trellises, what I did is we pounded in the T-post into the ground. T-posts are great because they're nice and sturdy. They will stay into the ground unless you don't pound them really far into the ground, then you have a chance of them getting loose. But as long as you do that, these things aren't going anywhere. And then as you saw, all I did was wrap this welded wire around and kind of made the arch formation of it. And then, just like before, with the tomatoes right here, we have more zip ties, and they truly are a homesteader's best friend. Zip ties can help out with every single project. But now we're gonna have 3 of these trellises here ready to go, and that's all it takes if you wanna make yourself an arch trellis that's fairly cheaper. There's gonna be a little wobble to a welded wire one compared to, we have a cattle panel one over here, which I'll show you. So there's a little bit of a different look, but as soon as everything starts growing on them, you're not gonna think about how that looks. The pigs are sleeping. How you guys doing? You guys getting cozy? It's nice to have the big willow tree in their area so they get a nice spot of shade, because today has been one hot day. Not the best day to be doing all this garden work, but we gotta get it done. We have even more plants inside our greenhouse that need to get planted and put away. And that's how it goes. You don't get to choose sometimes when you do these things. Sometimes they choose you. When they're ready to go and you need to do it, you gotta get to work. Have a great day and a better tomorrow. We'll see you guys in the next one.